Throughout history, certain events have shaped our world in ways that go far beyond their immediate impact. November 22nd, 1963. September 11th, 2001. March 2020. Each moment marked not just by tragedy, but by the questions that followed. The Warren Commission, the 9/11 Commission, emergency powers that became permanent. From Dallas to New York to global lockdowns, patterns emerge for those willing to look. The same institutions, the same responses, the same consolidation of power. Recent events continue this trajectory. Butler, Pennsylvania, Manhattan's streets, each incident followed by familiar narratives, familiar solutions. Meanwhile, in boardrooms from Davos to Bilderberg, the world's most powerful gather behind closed doors. Central banks coordinate policy. Intelligence agencies share resources. Global forums set agendas that nations follow. The World Economic Forum speaks of stakeholder capitalism. The Bilderberg Group meets in secrecy. Ancient orders maintain their influence. Some call it conspiracy, others call it coordination. But the connections are there, documented and undeniable. The question isn't whether these networks exist, it's whether we're brave enough to acknowledge their influence on the world we inhabit. The dots are there. We just have to be willing to connect them.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm going to start out with two questions. One, when has a federal agency ever investigated itself and found itself guilty? And two, why would a admitted CIA operative with a journalism cover write a book about the Idaho 4 case? Just putting it out there. You can mull it over, comment on it if you like. And I'll put that aside. Welcome to everybody. I see some familiar faces. Shout out to Big Amish Media. Great job, Amish, on Birdie Bombshells. Great topic, great discussion. Shawley Redacted, Lovely Me. I see my handler, Philly Special, Brandon Rudder. Let's see. It's just Kara. What's up? Good to see you guys. Beautiful Disaster. Critter 1113. Splendid. Wait, we see Green Eclectic Mama. Good to see you. Splendid Melancholy. Good to see you. No Talkie Before Coffee. Welcome back. Let's see. I got to develop my chat reading skills. So tonight we're going to get into all kinds of stuff. It's up to you guys what direction the stream goes. We'll start out with a few different things to talk about, mull over, ideas to throw around. But obviously, like typically when I do the weekend streams, it's open season. I'm sure we'll touch on some of the Idaho 4 stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about butt plugs. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about with that. Mallory says, don't kiss me where I pee. What's up, Mallory? Let's see. Lulu78 AOM, good to see you. A lot of my questions, Lulu, are rhetorical, and they're not hard to fill in the blanks on. I like to stir the shit. So I'll leave it up to you guys to come up with the answers for that. Go Birds. All right. So tonight, you know, I have some general topics in mind, but I never stick to the script. You guys should know that by now. Before we start jumping into the meat of the discussions and whatnot, I'm rereading 1984 right now. And if you have not read it, I highly recommend this book because it's incredible how relevant it is today. It's a good one. Guys, I stayed at that Quality Inn. DA and I, we stayed there. And I can tell you, it was not as exciting when we stayed there. So, yeah, read 1984, everybody, if you haven't. And if you have, reread it because I read it a long time ago when I wasn't really interested in a lot of the big picture stuff like I have become over the years. I just started watching this documentary, Greg Allman, The Music of My Soul. The Allman Brothers were always one of my favorite bands over the years, and this just got released on Amazon Prime. So I'm going to watch that. If you like the Allman Brothers, it looks like it's a really good documentary. And if you want to find a show that's sort of dissident to the mainstream narratives, this is one that I watch. It's called Redacted on YouTube. I highly recommend that. And I'm going to drop some things on everybody tonight. I'm going to issue a little challenge. We'll get to that later. And then there's a couple other things related to the challenge that we can discuss later. We got Big Amish Media in the house. He's going to jump up at some point, and I'm sure we'll dive in to the Idaho 4 stuff a little bit, the current stuff. I would argue that he also has a big picture view about things. In other words, he's looking past the official narrative, so to speak. I tend to do that as well because, in my opinion, in high profile cases, the big picture often gives you more insights if you look at that rather than only looking at the small details. So that's hopefully we'll get into that tonight as well. But the Quality Inn interview, I'll just touch on that real quick. It seemed to me that interview was either staged or it reveals an angle that I've sort of touched on in the past. And we can get into that more specifically, my take on that. But how batshit crazy was that interview? I mean, Pop and Switch, what's up? Welcome. I mean, I'm highly caffeinated tonight, everybody, just so you know. So I'm raring to go. That interview, I mean, the scope of craziness that interview covered. It was pure entertainment watching the Custody Queens and Ron listen to that interview. I mean, it was true comedy gold. Yeah, that was a great Van Halen album. I'm a big Van Halen fan, the old stuff, David Lee Roth stuff. Although Van Hagar had their moments, in the 80s, but I'm a old school Van Halen fan. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure everybody who talked about that video was probably dying laughing. It was comedy gold. See? Not every interview that we've heard is boring and dry. Yeah. All right, let's see. Oh yeah. What's up, Philly girl? That was great. Like just watching the faces. I like watching people's faces when they're listening to things and because their face reveals a lot. And Shawley redacted Van Halen. Yeah, I was a big Van Halen fan. I still am. I again nothing against Van Hagar, but old school Van Halen, that was my thing. I love the old Van Halen stuff. I tend to like the grittier stuff by bands. I've always been that way, like the deep cuts and the less popular or well-known songs. Yeah, Midnight Rider. I grew up with the Allman Brothers. I've played a lot of Allman Brothers tunes over the years. Greg Allman was always one of my favorite singers. I mean, even if you're not a big uh, Allman Brothers music fan, just Greg Allman as a singer, I mean, he was as gritty and bluesy as anybody. Yeah, B-sides, Philly girl. I'm down with the B-sides and the deep cuts. When I play gigs, a lot of times I play deep cuts. I'm not like the, "Hey, everybody, clap your hands" kinda guy, and, blended melancholy. I have a very strange mind sometimes. I will agree with that, and I don't know why I am that way, but I've always been that way. Love Alice in Chains, one of my favorite bands. Lane Staley's one of my favorite singers. I was, big into the Seattle scene, and, yeah, Lane Staley's awesome. I've played some Alice in Chains stuff too. I was in a couple of bands that covered a lot of grunge tunes, bar bands back in the day and whatnot. Crack is whack, huh? You must be talking about Mariah Carey? If I went out on a limb, that's what I would guess. And we can talk music too, like, I dig having music conversations. We can cover a bunch of different stuff tonight. I'm always cool with that stuff, and it's a late night after party, so no set structure. Oh, yeah. Yep. Mariah is the quality in, I gotcha. I didn't realize her name was Mariah, but it's apropos of some of the behaviors in the past of Mariah Carey, right? I sometimes think that the intelligence agencies just take old movies and books and old personalities and just weave them into their psyops. I think they have fun with it. Surely, thank you. I mean, I that's the way that I think, and, I like Birdie and I have had discussions, and we bounce off of each other ideas based on looking at things in a slightly different way, and so not everybody is gonna like the way that I frame things, and I get that, but I can't help the way my brain works. I tend to things pop into my head a weird way of framing things, and I can't get away from it. It's just the way I think. Angel Heart, what's up? I'm groovy. Good to see you. Lovely me. How much did they pay her for that interview? Like, what did she get for going on the record with made up unbelievable shit? I mean, I have to agree with this sentiment. It seems pretty manufactured, performative. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, she was probably dipping into the white stuff. Um, yeah, man, when I stayed at that Comfort Inn, or Quality Inn, was it Quality Inn? Whatever it was, I stayed there. No excitement, except DA and I did do some drunken streams from there that were pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, when I listen to stuff like that, this is what I think about. I think there are people out there who are buying that BS, unfortunately. They they don't realize that if you look at things or frame them in a different way, once you have that paradigm shift, then you see everything. Like, you can't unsee it. When you're being, the narrative pushing, the psyops, the propaganda, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Kiss me where I pee. Good to see you. Welcome back. Yeah, I mean, what can we say about that interview? It seems like somebody gave her a little script of talking points, and maybe her natural kookiness was injected into that while she was, going through the talking points that she tried to memorize. Yeah, Brandon, hold on. Sounds like the professor interview, although I have yet to listen to this hotel thing. Yeah, it was, something else, man. That's all I gotta say. You won't be disappointed. Chiquita, what's up? Good to see you. I think it's genuinely a BS, extremely embellished interview. Even the cop sounded like, oh, yeah, Amish. Good job on Birdie Bombshells, man. It was an interesting discussion. And I've been saying for a long time that there was some kind of an operation involved, in my opinion. It wasn't just a local incompetent police force. It wasn't just, yeah, local corruption. I just don't buy that. I don't buy that this level of coordination happens just to frame some rando guy. And all right, so since I'm still talking about it, I'm going to throw this out there. Just a just a thought. And by the way, everybody, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Make sure your notifications are turned on. People have told me that they didn't get notifications. It really helps me out. Got to grow this thing. All right, think about this. Let's just do a little thought experiment. Let's just say BK was working with the feds. And let's say someone in that house that allegedly was left a key card was a CI, and that BK was meeting with them. Now, I'm not saying I believe that narrative. We're just thought experimenting right now. And that would be another explanation of why he might have been waiting for somebody. Uh, Another is obviously it's nonsense, made up nonsense. So it's just food for thought. Yeah, the custody queens going over that video, Brandon, is truly comedy gold. Angel Heart. Yeah, I'm still hanging in there, still playing gigs on the weekends, but it's just like a side hustle now. Big Amish. Yeah, I mean, I like to do thought experiments because that's how you workshop ideas. So a lot of times I'll say that, I'll preface it by saying, "This is just a hypothesis or a thought experiment," or "Let's think tank this idea," because that's how you work through ideas. And in my opinion, when you a case clearly has, in my opinion, a lot of coordination, I think you have to zoom out. I know I've said that a million times, but thanks, Kiss Me Where I Pee. I appreciate that. Now, I'm not saying I've said it many times. I'm not saying that I have it all figured out because I've had many different theories and different threads in this case that I think need to be pulled. The thing that I'm still very confident in is that there was an operation. There were things that needed to be covered up. And I think that it went further up than just local. And that is what necessitated a cover up and coordination at the level that I think we have seen in this case. I mean, see the problem that I run up against is I sniff out BS instantaneously. I sniff out psyops, and it's really just pattern recognition once you know how to identify them. And so then I'm not saying my mind can't be changed, but if I smell a psyop, then I'm going to question anything that comes after that, even whistleblowers. If whistleblowers, quote unquote, whistleblowers come out, my mind goes to limited hangouts. They're releasing some bombshell information, but I oftentimes that information, if it's a limited hangout, can't be trusted. It just satiates people. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people do have good pattern recognition. It's just they're not the people being platformed and promoted and pushed. I often believe that people that push divisive narratives or mainstream or establishment talking points get promoted. And that's why I'm going to issue a challenge tonight, later in the stream, to everybody. Don't support people that push divisive narratives. I'll just say that right now. We got Amish. Clearly, the feds had a GJ investigation, likely sealed indictments, likely ongoing. Yeah. I think that the whole idea of like a parallel investigation and so on and so forth makes a lot of sense in this case because think about it. Think of all the redactions in both the interviews, the documents, the body cam footage. If there were things that might expose sensitive information that's relevant to a parallel investigation, it would make sense that there would be so many redactions, so much steering of a narrative to steer away from whatever was going on in the background. All right. I'm going to let my handler deal with the chat. I warned you guys, I'm highly caffeinated tonight. So let's do this. Philly, do you want to throw up a poll? Let's get this party started and get a poll going. Let's stimulate the staties. Let's get the deep state agitated. Yeah, I agree with Lovely Me that there's like Epstein files level coordination. And to me, I don't think that that happens with just a little old local, corruption case or framing somebody. What's up, Moto Man MX? Good to see you. Yeah, I mean, do you have a poll? Are you cooking up a poll, Philly? Storykeeper, what's up? Good to see you. I mean, guys, look at all the fuckery that we've seen in the last year. I mean, in 6 years, but in the last year or so alone. I mean, they've pretty much lifted the veil for the most part. I don't know, Philly. If you got a good idea for a poll, you can throw it up. Um, Otherwise, we can get some feedback from the chat if they want to touch on anything specific. Let's get the chat cooking a little bit. You guys, if you have something Idaho 4 related or totally unrelated, there's no law that says we have to stick to one topic. Lenny Briscoe, good to see you. Yeah, I think Lenny Briscoe, I agree. I've been saying that for a long time. I think that there is something more happening, which is precisely the reason why you guys don't see me digging too much into like the specific every document, every video, every interview. I watch that stuff and I pay attention because I want to at least stay up on, the narratives and what people are discussing. But in my opinion, it's just my opinion, you can only get so far with that. There are other threads that need to be pulled. But do I believe we're going to ever get the big reveal on this case? Yeah, I don't know. I tend to think we're probably not, but I tend to feel like not to be totally black-pilled on it, but if like there's a whistleblower, can we even trust that at this point? Yeah, Mallory, I agree with that. I think that Thompson, look, but here's a way to look at it regarding corruption. Let's just do another thought experiment. I'd like to get big Amish media's take on this. Let's assume that you are a local law enforcement officer or a local prosecutor in a rural area. And there's an operation going on. You would at the very least you would have to be made aware of generalities. There's a lot of compartmentalization when you're dealing with different agencies, but on some level they would have to notify local law enforcement or state level law enforcement. Let's just say you were pulled aside and told you were an officer of the court or you were a detective or a state investigator on some level that this large scale operation is happening and we need this is your role. This is your given role in this larger operation that has national security implications. I'm the first one that's going to shit on people if I think they're lying to the public. But at the same time, if within the scope of what your job description is, what your capacity is, you are told this is what your role is, your hands are tied in many respects. Because if it goes high enough up the ladder and you reveal that information, then you're violating the Espionage Act. I think Amish and I may have spoken about that last week. So that's why I sometimes, when everybody's jumping all over DM and some of the other peripheral people, I tend to think of it a little bit differently. Yeah, lovely me. I agree with you. Um, I believe, just my opinion, purely my opinion. I think Ann Taylor knows what's really going on. I think the experts that have come out of the woodwork know what's going on. And in my opinion, they're playing a role. I think there have been people in the periphery of this case that, in my opinion, are playing a role. Lenny, I tend to, I mean, I have to agree with you on that. It's just, again, it's the difference is this. If you frame a case, say, if anybody has studied psychology, you have a schema. We have a schema in how our brain organizes information for certain topics and ideas. So you have this schema. I'm just using this little square as an example. If you frame a true crime case the same way that you always look at true crime cases, and it's a case that may have much bigger implications, well, then you're stuck. You're stuck in this box because it's your preconceived ideas and your schema that you have of that case that's limiting the way that you look at that case. And that is precisely why I have said time and time again, um, Philly, I don't see the poll in the chat. I know that in the widgets there were a couple of different settings. All right, Big Amish. If a local law enforcement becomes involved to participate in a Fed op, they are deputized as a federal agent on the spot. Usually involves dual hat or what I call hybrid LE, where the information siphoned. Yeah. So all right, so there's a hierarchy. And so, for example, I'm going to throw another hypothesis out. I can't prove this, but based on what I know about a certain three-letter agency that's works on an international level, I'm sure you guys can all connect the dots who I am speaking about. Based on what I know, they could literally, and I'm not saying that they're involved in this case. That's not, I'm just making a point. I'm illustrating the point that Big Amish is trying to get across. If they're involved with something, they can literally walk into a police station. Let's say somebody involved in operations that has a non-official cover, which they cannot disclose. So if they get caught up in law enforcement on a local level or in some way, or even on a federal level, and they can't reveal their operation or their true identity, a high level officer from this three-letter agency that deals with international things can literally walk into that police station or that local federal office, say it was the FBI, and walk that person out of there or take them out the back door. Now, the public doesn't hear about this type of stuff, but there are hierarchies, is what I'm getting at. All right. We may not know what happened. It really depends on how deep the government is involved and or how deep the pocketbooks are. Yeah, I wouldn't wait, by the way. Wouldn't wait 8 hours. Welcome. I agree with that. And I've been trying to, when I've gotten a little bit of pushback from people, I've tried to explain that to them, to the like for example, if I've gotten a comment about this type of thing, like that I'm a conspiracy theorist or whatever. There are different systems that are in place that the public is largely unaware of. There are many agencies that we don't hear about regularly. When you're talking about operations or black ops or things of that nature that are coming down from a very high level, the general public does not hear about them usually. Yeah, you might hear about them 30 years later. Some whistleblower or some journalist will write about it and expose it, like Seymour Hersh, who's an award-winning investigative journalist. I've been listening to his audiobook, Reporter, and he was involved with some really high-profile cases back in the day and CIA-related stuff. He got information from sources within the CIA and exposed some stuff. Yeah, so okay, here we go. Here we got a poll here. After everything that has come out, how confident are you that the public knows what is that? Are we missing part of that? Did it get cut off? The public knows the truth. Is that what you were getting at? Um, that poll that you just put up, Philly, I don't think it popped up in the chat. Um, right as of now, I don't know, but it looks like it might have gotten cut off a little bit. All right. Yeah, Chiquita, look, they sounded, I think they were just kind of taking in her glorious emotional state, and they didn't know, what to think of her. I mean, could you imagine, guys, can you imagine you have to interview somebody that called in with a tip, and then you show up and they are like going off the rails? I mean, it's got to be somewhat entertaining for if for any tedious legwork that you have to do for a case to run into somebody like that. All right, so we're having some poll issues, everybody. My poll is not working properly. Um, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of wacky shit going on with this case, and I'll tell you, I'm gonna theorize for a minute. And Amish, in a little bit, if you're still hanging about and you want to jump up, we can start getting into it as well. Because again, we always sort of morph into different topics. You guys know how my brain has a tendency to go off the rails. Um, think about it. When you have so many inconsistencies in a case, you have to ask the simple question: have we been told the truth about the most basic aspects of the case? Yeah. I mean, to me personally, now some people might say that's crazy that this would be lied to about so many things. But if you understand the nature of operations, if you've read books that get into operations, you start to see the different layers that are involved and the level of compartmentalization that's involved. And I encourage people often to, that's why we have book recommendations on the community page and on Discord. So I recommend that people, pay attention if you're interested in the community tab of my channel, and also join our Discord, because we're getting some people to help us out with research, which what I have right now, we have it sort of in the works, and it's on the back burner only because it's going to be broken down into different series. So we're going to be doing some multi-part series coming up. Um, some different topics. We're going to be doing one on the American dream, the reality versus the fiction of the American dream. We're going to do a deep dive into that. It's going to be a multi-part, and we'll probably do lives for these. It's possible it might be half and half. Like we might do pre-recorded and then talk about this stuff in a live. Let's say BK is set free. Does MPD have to buy him a car? I mean, I know he can get money and basically own Idaho, but specifically they destroyed his car. Mallory, we're going to have to throw down. My theory is that Brian Koberger is an operative. I feel very, very strongly about this. They needed to facilitate getting the public to move on, getting business back to usual at the school and in the town. They needed to have somebody to play a role. And I think there's a lot of information that suggests that, and a lot of supporting information just for a theory that he was already working with potentially research being conducted in the area and potentially with one of the agencies before the crimes. So, in my opinion, and I've talked about it ad nauseum over many, many months at this point, probably a year at this point, that I believe that he was brought in as an operative. Now, if you don't read books about agencies and operations and different things that have been declassified over the years, you would think I'm crazy. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you will see that. And just pay attention to what's been going on in this country. The media is allowed to lie to the public. There's a misconception that the media has to tell us the truth. They do not. So yeah, I would recommend everybody join the Discord. Thank you, Shawley. So Shawley, are you the Shawley? I think you are, where you and your husband call into Birdie's show a lot from the UK. Confirm that for me. I think you are. I just want to confirm that because I enjoy, if you are who I think you are, I enjoy your call-ins very much. And I like your accent. All right. Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that. Yeah, I like your accent and I like your brain. And your husband seems cool too. I mean, I follow Birdie. I've been listening to Birdie since well before I ever ended up meeting him and speaking with him. And I like the Custody Queens. Like I was following their content before I ever met with them. And by the way, the Shawley, you're welcome to come up on stage too, by the way. You guys, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear enough about that. We're going to definitely get Big Amish up if he's kicking around still in the chat. And Shawley, you're welcome to come up and have a chat. Absolutely, 100%. The Custody Queens, Off the Clock, and Ron are going to be guests on this channel next Friday. And it should be live at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. So 1:30 Pacific time. And so, right, I think that's how it shakes out. 1:30, 2:30 my time. Yeah, it'll be 4:30 Eastern time. And yeah, I believe that is that right, guys? Time zones. Let me think. 1:30 Pacific. Yeah, that's 2:30 my time, which would be 4:30 Eastern time. And I'm going to interview them. I'm going to pick their brain. I'm going to let them give their opinion on everything that they have seen so far, the interviews they've conducted, get their perspective. Mallory, here's the thing. I tend to think that BK, remember, guys, everything we know about Brian Koberger is what we've been told about him. I've talked about this on Birdie. I've talked about it on here. I think the videos of him getting pulled over and the images of him in prison were released to groom the public. Look at the guy. Look at this weird guy. He got pulled over twice in the White Elantra. Look at him in prison. Oh my God. How did this picture of him in prison get leaked? That's psyop stuff, guys. Somebody getting pulled over twice within a very short period of time for following too closely and not getting a ticket. Yeah, that's a great idea, Maureen. Welcome. Good to see you. Maureen252 says, maybe when you do the American Dream, we can get a couple of younger adults and get their views and perspective on it. My 31-year-old son has commented that his generation doesn't have this same, I would imagine what you're getting at is same opportunities, same, opportunities to get ahead and participate in the so-called American Dream. Yeah, so it's 8:28 and it's 1:30 Pacific time, so it'll be like Eastern time. I guess it's Eastern Daylight Time now. Will be 4:30 p.m. So Colorado time, it's 2:30 because I'm an hour ahead of California. All right, yeah, Shawley, that's cool. So yeah, you're welcome to come up on stage and chat with us, and we can talk like ideas. Yeah, Amish, go get some food, man. We'll be here. We'll get you up. Look. You have to understand too, just so people who might not know, my perspective is not based on just looking at the evidence we've been presented. It's looking at the inconsistencies, looking at things that were happening before, during, and after, like with all the media coordination, things like that are how I tend to look at things. I tend to, and that doesn't mean that I think so. All right. When the custody queens come on the channel next week, I'm going to also steelman the argument of how BK could have been involved. My take on that. When I say steelman, I mean present a supporting argument for him being involved. Besides just solely as an operative. I will steelman it because I have to be intellectually honest. And of course, I have to be able to look at the scenarios in which maybe he really is involved. Let me just drop this on you guys. Tell me what you guys think about this. I don't believe that somebody would be framed just to cover up a local operation and then still have that much coordination if it was just on a local level. So I'll just say that. And I think is Moto Man backstage? Moto Man, you might be, let me see if I can see. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to bring Moto Man MX up on stage for a little chat, everybody. What's up, Moto Man? How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. How are you doing, JJ?
I'm good, man. Let me ask you this, man. What did you think? Did you see that interview, that latest interview the custody queens and Ron went over?
No, honestly, I didn't. Uh, just kind of refresh me. I'm pretty sure I can catch up pretty quick.
Yeah, I gotcha. Dude, you got to watch that, man. It's if for no other reason than it's high level entertainment. You know, I I told Philly about it and I told her the same thing and then she was like holy shit, and when she actually went and listened to that interview, it's pretty crazy, man, some of the stuff that they get into. But what do you got, man? What's on your mind? Hit me with something.
I just honestly think there's so much stuff being released right now, little bits and pieces, tidbits, and it's kind of throwing everybody all over the place. Um, no one can really no one's had time to actually just sit down, put everything together, and have a clear idea or have a real clear view of what's going on. It's because it's just being covered constantly.
Right.
It's kind of we're focusing on the microcosms of the case instead of just taking a step back and looking at the thing as a whole. So
Right.
honestly, I kind of I'm not saying anybody should take a break or whatever from it because I mean it's a popular topic, but at the same time, I mean, maybe reserve our theories for a better time until maybe we find out whether there is going to be a trial or not, right? Because
Right.
by that time, we should have enough stuff to at least piece something together.
Yeah. I look, I agree with that, and to be honest, I wasn't really talking about the Idaho 4 case when I started my channel,
Yeah.
but a lot of people were digging into this other stuff, and this, like you said, these drips of information kept coming out, and these experts and these interviews and documents and so on. So people would ask me what I thought about it, and that is precisely why I don't dig into the minutia. I talk about this all the time. I have what I believe, big picture wise, a part of what the big picture is that I believe. But, for me, I like to talk about the bigger picture things that go beyond the case that can be applied to other things. And so, while on one hand, I totally understand the people that have been following this case from day one want to discuss this stuff. I get it. It makes sense. You're invested in it. You've put a lot of thought into it. But at the same time, I've said this before multiple times. A lot of what's coming out could just be distractions. And so this is precisely the reason why you don't see me going through like the videos and the documents and things like that, because it's just some people, they're 10 times better than I'll ever be at digging into that stuff. That's why one of the reasons I don't do it. People like Lana and Pavarotti and Birdie goes into a lot of the interviews and things. They're better at it than I am. I tend to look at the big picture, and the custody queens, for example, they're attorneys. They're looking at it from a different perspective than I would be able to look at it. So I agree with you that we don't even know what's going to happen. He may not even get a new trial.
Well, that's just it, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like it actually. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the case, just if you don't mind.
Sure, go
So
ahead.
what drives me the most batshit crazy about this? So I know you know a little bit about it because you've been on Devil's Advocate for a while, and it's pretty much all they talk about. But what's crazy is why wouldn't the G's want this trial? I mean, honestly, I understand they want everybody to think that he's guilty, 100%. I get where they're coming from. Personally, that's not my opinion, but I mean, I just don't understand why. Why would you not want him to go to trial? If he goes to trial, that means the death penalty is back on the table for him. It's in the family's best interest for this to happen. If in fact, there is so much evidence against him. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah.
And then I don't know. There's just so much drama and bullshit and other stuff going on with the case. It's just like I got to take a step back.
Yeah, and look, man, I've echoed that sentiment many times, and I try to I look. Most people that have heard me discuss this case are sick of hearing me talk about what I think about the case, but I don't think, in my opinion, the truth, the overarching truth, the bigger picture is going to be revealed by documents and interviews.
I agree 100%, JJ. I believe there's multiple threads coming together and then exiting a different way throughout this case. If I don't know, maybe if you don't understand my analogy, but that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, and I've said this very thing. I have said when I was on Devil's Advocates, for example, I made the point several times that I thought there were other threads that needed to be pulled.
Yeah.
And that, and that was just my opinion. If we really wanted to get more information, not to say we're definitely going to solve the case, but to get closer to the truth.
Right.
And
Right.
I can't make people, that's just my opinion. And I've talked about those threads many, many times when I was on Devil's Advocates and when I've been on other streams. And Birdie and I have gotten into it a little bit, some of the other threads. And Birdie started to pull on some of those other threads because he did his 4-part series about what was going on in the area beforehand, what happened as a result of those operations that were going on in that area. That type of stuff, in my opinion, is more likely what is going to shed light on the bigger picture. Now, if there's national security implications, they don't have to tell us about that stuff.
So I think the national security, essentially, the national security implications that have taken place in this case, it's simply the fact that it's distracted everybody from everything else.
Right.
I mean, think about how many true crime, channels just focused on this one particular case. We're not focusing on any other cases that are happening. We're not focusing on any other topics or issues that are probably more important than the Idaho 4 right at this very moment, right? I mean, look at what's going on, overseas right now with the Strait of Hormuz, all that sort of stuff. Like,
right. Yeah.
Like it's pulling attention away from that. Like it's just a distraction. At this point, it's a distraction.
And I've said that, look, why would a guy who literally openly said that he worked for the CIA and he had a journalism cover write a book about the Idaho 4 case? Like, people were talking about Chris Whitcomb, like, oh, former FBI special agent. Well, he was CIA after that.
Yeah.
His word. This is his words, not mine.
Well, if you think about it, if this guy's CIA, well, CIA isn't meant for domestic. It's not to solve domestic cases. It's to investigate international terrorism and crimes. It's not an agency that is supposed to even be involved with the United States public.
Right.
That's the FBI's job.
However, they have been caught many times in the past dabbling in domestic affairs and propaganda on citizens and things like that. So again, to your point, to your point, though, I agree, because I've talked about this a lot. I've brought up the distraction thing many times. I've said this exact thing. What are they trying to distract us away from?
But I mean, is it possible that a case like this actually has like international culpability? Like, does this really have something to do with the Mexican drug cartel? Does this really have to? Well, I guess if it's cross borders, right? I mean, if there is a drug problem and there is an issue with drugs internationally coming in from Canada, coming down south into Idaho or into Washington, whatever the route may be. I mean, and then it's picked up by cartel members and then distributed, southward towards the Mexican border. I mean, yeah, I can see why the CIA might have an interest. So is that the link?
And the DHS, cross-border stuff, protecting the border.
Yeah.
And also, you often have multi-agency operations that you don't find out about till years later, and so again, I've talked about this stuff in the past many times because what most people who watch any of my other content that's not about the Idaho 4, in fact, most of it is not about the Idaho 4, know that I try to talk about bigger picture things that anybody can research on their own, because one of the topics that I've discussed is 5th generation warfare, which is utilizing technology and information and psyops and propaganda to wage war against citizens. And so if people make the connection, connect the dots to the things that I'm regularly speaking about and why I frame the Idaho 4 case the way that I do, they'll understand my perspective more. That it's not about, like, I only got into this, the only true crime cases that I really have followed have typically been serial killer type cases, because I studied forensic psychology and profiling and things like that. I always looked at it from that perspective. And that's how I started looking at the Idaho 4 case, in the beginning, before Koberger came into the picture. And I just want to point this out to everybody. I know most people here aren't buying the official story, but let's just go back to the experts now. All forensic investigators and profilers and forensic psychologists would say this. This is not my theory. Somebody does not commit a quadruple homicide with an edged weapon in close quarters, number one, as their first crime, and number two, unless they have some connection to the victims. This is not my theory. This is a very well-known forensic and profiling theory. So right out of the gate,
JJ, actually, you know what? Maybe you can answer this for me then.
Shoot.
Okay, so right at the beginning of the case, I don't know how far back or when you started watching it, but when they had all these FBI profilers on talking about what was happening. They said, using a knife when you're stabbing somebody, it's like a sexual crime.
Yeah, it's very personal. So it has a sexual component.
So there's a sexual component to it, and you're with a fixed blade weapon breaking into a house. It's burglary. It's sexual burglary of some sort. Okay,
right.
Burglary with a sexual component. Well, BK, the stuff that BK was interested in was burglary without the sexual component. So why would somebody that's interested in studying a case, in studying cases that don't have that sexual component tied to them, why would he commit a crime that incorporates it?
Right. Right. And so again, this is
right. So I mean, right there, it breaks their entire narrative.
Of course, and
somebody he proves that by the actual work that he does in his schoolwork, in his papers, in his documents that he written with his own hands. So I mean, for them to come out and try to pull the wool over our eyes, I think it's farcical. It's such a and where you and Birdie kind of link up and think this is some sort of psyop. Psyop maybe, but I mean, cover up, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, cover-ups always include some component of psyops, right? Because you have to convince the public of something.
Right.
But to your point about the knife thing, now they investigated BK's, supposedly they investigated a potential connection to a woman that disappeared in Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
They found ultimately no connection. They found no connection to him, because if this was a real good faith investigation, they had a connection with him in another crime, violent crime or a murder, they would tell the public about that, right? To support their narrative.
Absolutely.
Right? They didn't have that. And I said from day one, before I started really digging into this case. I said, well, if this guy did it, this is not his first violent crime, because that doesn't work that way. Serial killers escalate. Their crimes escalate over time. So someone doesn't just, it's extremely rare, if not unheard of, that somebody would carry out a violent crime like this personal, for their first murder, and then also have no known connection to the victims. It's far, to your point, it's farcical. It's ridiculous. That would not happen. So I agree with you, man. I think largely we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't expect people to agree with every angle that I have on anything.
No.
And so,
you know what, I prefer it if they don't agree with me, because, you know, at least we have, you know, some sort of conflict resolution. We can work through the problem, right? So, I mean, it's not honestly disagreement. It's usually just constructive criticism.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And Delco Alano, 1982, what's up? Good to see you. What aren't they trying to distract us away from? Right. That's scarier and probably more accurate way to say that it's sad, but it's true. I mean, yeah. Okay. So I've been saying that for a while. Look at what's going on in the world. I said this many, many times about the Idaho 4 case and Charlie Kirk and the Luigi Mangione and the Nancy Guthrie. Why is it that these things always seem to pop up when there's fuckery going on in other countries that the public is not happy about?
Well, every time there's a bad political, you know, there's a bad political, I guess, something politically bad is happening. It's just like, okay, well, guess what, guys? We just found aliens on another planet. Look this way. This is our bright new shiny object. Look over here.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Look, in the book Legacy of Ashes about the CIA, they talked about how they used the alien thing anytime we were in another country. This is going back to like the 50s. Overthrowing a government, they would plant stories about aliens in the local media there.
Absolutely.
This is why Ipati and I always go to battle about aliens.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's a whole nother night, but
yeah, well, you know, I've joked about it with Ipati and stuff like that. But hey, man, I appreciate your take on stuff. Come up anytime.
All right, man. Appreciate you having me up. Have a good night, bud.
You too, brother. All right. Thanks to Moto Man MX. I think we largely see things more or less the same way. Yeah, right. I see. Hey, I just want to say anybody that oh, sorry, my handler's going to get mad at me. I clicked on something. Sorry, Philly. Yeah, aliens, foreign or domestic. Exactly. And Philly, why don't you pop up? I have to go grab my rooster from the roof and grab another drink. I'll be right back. Oh, I like that. Is that a raccoon or is that a bear? Oh, that's the bear.
That's the bear.
Yeah, you're gonna post my bear pictures on stream?
I did. I posted. I'll tell the story while you go get the rooster.
All right, I'll be right back, everybody.
Hi, guys. So here's my $90 bear. So what's so funny was I was on the phone with JJ. He's driving home from work. Now, mind you, we're on the phone. He's driving home from work. And all of a sudden, he was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And I'm thinking the worst. Like, somebody hit him. He hit somebody. I can't see anything. And he's like, it's a bear. It's a bear. And he pulls over. And if you guys are on our Discord, and I did post in our community tab, he's like, because he's always telling me there's bears everywhere, and I never believe him. So there's this bear right outside of his house in his garbage can. And he's so excited, and he's just telling me all about this bear. And of course, I'm like, yeah, there's not a bear. So he sends me a picture of the bear. So he could probably tell it better than I can, but that's my bear because JJ seems to see bears everywhere he goes in Colorado. So anyway, back to the Idaho 4. Then he accused that bear of being in Moscow. Yes, he did, Mallory. He did accuse that bear of being in Moscow. Apparently that bear travels.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. So did you tell the bear story?
I did. How excited about you are about the bear. And then Mallory said, you accused the bear of being in Moscow.
That's right. I know a bear when I see one. I was so excited simply because we happened to be talking as I pulled up on the bear.
He was super excited.
Yeah. There's been a lot of bear activity around here lately. So I saw another huge bear just the other day during the daytime, and
supposedly
there are a lot of bears here. I don't know why people would think that the Colorado Rocky Mountains don't have a lot of bears, but they're out there and they've been antsy. And I think it's because we had a drought for the first half of the summer. So a lot of their food sources dry up. He was pretty Amish. We should post a picture. Can you put? Well, you'd have to upload them to your computer.
They're on Discord and they're on the community.
All right, so Philly posted the pictures that I took of the bear. So they're not grizzlies. Yeah, Angel Heart. These are black bears, but they're pretty big. The Rocky Mountains has some. It's weird. Different regions, the bears look totally different. Like on the East Coast, on the East Coast, the black bears have a longer head, thinner, longer head. Here, they have big, fat heads, and they're bigger.
JJ, Amish is here. We're going to add him to the stage.
Yes, guys, big Amish media. He probably heard him on Birdie tonight. He's a sharp dude. He does his research, and I like the way this man thinks. What's up, Amish?
Hey, JJ, Billy, great to see you both.
Good to see you, man.
Warm welcome. Yes.
Yeah, man. I like your discussion with Birdie. It's very interesting because we touched on it a little bit last week.
Yes, we did.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that one thing that you and I definitely agree on is that there are things that happen in the background oftentimes with high profile events that the public assumes that we're being told everything, that a lot of people, not the community that we are a part of, but like in general, a lot of people assume that they're getting all of the official information, but there's often other things happening in the background that relate to much bigger picture things that they're not obligated to tell the public about necessarily. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And I think a great way of illustrating that is, and it has nothing to do with politics because I have not voted in some of the past couple of elections. So I've been just disinterested for many other reasons. But if you think about what had happened regarding the 702s, regarding Trump, and how that was concealed. I mean, he would raise wiretap and people would make fun of him, and the FBI and Comey and the like. Regardless of politics, I'm just saying, if it could happen to our president, it could happen to all of us. That's all.
Yeah. And to your point, man, I hate all of them equally. So, and people have heard me talk about this ad nauseum. Like, I think it's all fake. I
It's
don't believe
wrestling.
there's two opposing parties. Yes, there's some people on both sides who, quote unquote, sides who maybe believe in the rhetoric, but in my humble opinion, the same high level fuckery happens regardless what party's in office. The rhetoric changes, but ultimately the same nonsense happens. I think it's been a psyop that goes back to the founding of this country. I won't get into it on this stream, but we will when we talk about the American dream. I'm sure we're going to dig into that more. And by the way, everybody, Big Amish Media is going to be on next Saturday, late night stream again. And
Yes. Look forward to it.
we're going to dig into things in more detail. I'm going to let him really to speak a lot about what he's looked into and his ideas about things. Tonight we're going to talk about all kinds of things, I'm sure. But let me ask you this, Amish.
Yep.
When you look at, let's for an example, just zoom out, right? Which I'm sure you've done. When you zoom out and rather than look at certain threads, look at the whole thing like a web of threads. What is the impression that you get that contributes, like the overarching idea that you believe contributes to everything that we've seen so far? Like, what's your big picture take on the Idaho 4 case?
Ooh, I don't know if I got into that final element. However, I can tell you there's multiple pegs of crypto, pegs of rugs, right? And we're talking cartel size, so you have the national security implications,
Right.
right? Because you had President, and it's interesting the timing of President Trump designating the cartels as FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, which means through executive order that the DOJ and the FBI can basically conceal things whenever they want, as
Right.
long as it's related to federal jurisdiction. They could use that as the ultimate hammer to just
Right.
close things down. Now,
And
yeah,
I just wanted to jump in before I lose this thread in my mind.
right.
I've talked about a certain person who wrote a book about this case, who wasn't openly discussed being a CIA operative.
Okay.
And I asked the question at the beginning of this thread because I knew we were going to get into this. Why would somebody who is, admittedly, his words, had a journalism cover for the CIA,
Right.
why would he
Operation
be
Mockingbird.
writing about this case? Now, if you designate the cartels as a terrorist group,
Right.
well, guess what agency then is involved?
Well, the CIA is going to be involved as
Right.
well, and the FBI. Here's a great way of looking at the concepts. We talked on the last show about joint task force officers, where they're hybrids, even now with Bernie too, where you have local law enforcement as federal assets, these hybrid officers. Well, the same thing applies with the FBI and the CIA. And why is it? Because there was one, I forgot who you had on earlier. They were talking about how the CIA has to operate jurisdictionally. Yes, that's true. They operate outside the US. However, in support roles, right? And in different ways, we can get into that another time, but clearly they could perform certain support roles, and that is constitutional to with federal agencies within the United States. In support roles, they could do that. That's how they were involved at J6. Well, I won't. That's a whole other thing. We won't even get there. But I think it's very important to people to understand concepts where we think one thing just because jurisdiction says you're cut off from here and you can't do it. There's always a backdoor.
Right.
There's a backdoor to evidence being gathered and hidden. And I'll just address this with evidence. For example, we heard Turvey talk about hairs being on the wall, the bed frame, and in the hand of Ethan, right? And they tested the hand in his they tested the hair in his hand, one hair. And if they said it was not BK's, that's what they tell us. And we take them at their word that there was one hair tested. But the
Right.
reality is that there could be federal sealed indictments, okay, on the Fed side that have all this information and charges and findings and DNA analysis of other hair involving cartel members. We don't know. And so it's hard for people to grasp and understand the kind of circular reasoning and operations that occur. And it's designed that way. Right? I mean,
Right.
yeah.
And to your point about these joint roles that people play,
Yeah.
there are things that exist in the intelligence communities that have been going on for a very long time that your average citizen is not aware of because they don't dig into this stuff, like cutout companies, front companies, and so on and so forth, that give the agency capacity to carry out certain operations in other parts of the world, but also provide them plausible deniability if shit goes sideways and there's blowback. So there's many, I've talked about different books and things like that that discuss this type of thing. And I encourage people to look at some of the books we've recommended and things like that. The problem that I think, the bigger picture problem that I think exists is that a lot of people assume that if they are not aware of things that have happened and that do happen, they can't be true because they don't like the idea of it. So, in other words, if something is a threatening idea, like that there's nefarious agendas at play, for example, just that's a pretty broad one. They resist looking into the reality of that particular thing existing because it's too threatening. And therefore it's easier to dismiss these ideas as crazy conspiracy theories rather than to dig into them and try to learn about what's true and what's not. I've had many conversations over the years with people that said, I've talked about something with them. They think I'm crazy. And then 2 years later, they're texting me because they went and looked into things on their own and were like, wow, what you were saying is true. But initially, people resist those ideas. So that the things that you're speaking about, a lot of people may not be aware that these types of things even happen.
That's right. Out of place, out of mind.
Right.
The sound quit. Oh, I thought the sound. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like the boogeyman. Do we really believe in the boogeyman? Is it a myth? But when people usually stay away from danger. That's just the normal response. You don't want to believe that evil exists, but it exists in many forms. And to your point about individuals not wanting to, that's just the psyche of and the nature of our psyche. But once you see it, you never forget it. You know where to look. You know where that evil or darkness hides. And it comes in many forms. And I don't care what it is. Everything that we think is safe and good has a dark side to it. Every one of them. Everyone. That's just my opinion. Could be wrong. But that's just how I feel. Now, having said that, I do believe most people have goodness in their heart. They're not looking for these things that we're talking about, but they're the ones who usually get preyed upon.
Right.
And
They get corralled into a way of thinking because the alternative is very threatening. It causes cognitive dissonance. And I think for me personally, I've had my awakenings that have occurred over years, over time, that, perhaps I developed my pattern recognition over time, and that once you have that awakening and you have that paradigm shift, you become more aware of the patterns that reemerge and have occurred throughout history, going back thousands of years. Power structures have operated in a certain way. And why would they change things, tactics, methods of doing things that have been successful for literally hundreds and hundreds of years? Divide and conquer, utilizing fear to get people to manipulate people, to get them to acquiesce to things that are not in their best interest. They utilize these tactics because they've always worked.
Sure.
And
Religion,
so,
absolutely. Everything.
yeah. And I
Every one.
studied psychology, and so I recognize these patterns in how information is used against people. And my goal, my whole reason for starting this channel is to get people on board who are willing to dig a little deeper, maybe have their minds changed to discuss ideas that maybe are a little bit outside of just looking at the smaller details and zooming out a little more.
That's fair. I agree. There's a lot, and you're actually in a perfect area to address. Right. I've not looked at all your shows, but clearly they kind of follow what I tend to look at as well. But just the sad part is how people, I use the term preyed upon because that's really what I see, whether it's in politics, people really believe that one person in politics could change things. Now, I'm not saying it can't, but man, does that one person have to go against the grain and basically you basically have to undo everything that's been done to basically create that cover. And that's a lot. That's asking a lot. And there's outside forces that are there to protect that as well.
Right.
We might call it third parties. That's a great way of the government entrusting others and helping them advance technologies that ultimately are used against their own people, us.
Right. Right. I mean, I've talked about fifth generation warfare and talked about a lot of these things, and I will continue to. And by the way, Shawley, I didn't know that actually. That's interesting because I studied forensic psychology and clinical psychology, and also abnormal psychology, which ties in with both clinical and forensic psychology. And then on my own for years, I read a lot of books about profiling. And I actually went to school to become a psychotherapist. Those other courses were just ancillary courses that I took. And I took a course, I've talked about it before, taught by an FBI special agent called Conflict and Violence. That was a really super interesting course. And so I've both in college and on my own have studied a lot of this stuff, and it informs the way that I look at things, because everything right now, what Amish and I are speaking about, it's all psychology, because anything that involves people is connected to psychology.
Yeah.
And so these ideas like Amish, this idea of nefarious agendas going on and people not wanting, I think it's actually very scary, and the psyche resists information that's very scary, that has bigger implications. Because if you accept that these things, these operations, these psyops, these nefarious agendas, like the big tech stuff happening and so on, and the flock cameras and the toka technology that's being developed,
yes,
with video streams and things like that. If you really think about those things and you extrapolate, the implications are extremely scary to accept.
Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, that whatever is really going on behind the scenes with this Idaho 4 case, however you want to frame it, there are bigger implications. Whether it's if you believe he was framed, whether if you believe he's guilty, you would have to ask yourself questions in any case that would have bigger implications. Like, if he is guilty, why was the public lied to so much about his involvement and how he was involved? What are they not revealing, and why? So if you're willing to ask those questions, you have to also be willing to accept the why of things. So what is being hidden from the public? There has to be a reason why it's been hidden from the public. Whether you believe he's guilty, whether you believe he's being framed, or whether you believe, like I do, that he is part of an operation, either one of those scenarios require you to have to look at the bigger implications of it.
100%. You're right.
Amish, I want you to expound a little bit on like some of the things you talked about on Birdie regarding like the grand jury stuff and the subpoenas, right? You had talked about that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you go into that a little bit, and I'll shut up and listen, because I'm sure people would like to hear more.
Yeah, jump in, in case I go off field a little bit, just rein me in. But we know for a fact, and this is from the prosecution telling us, other than the filings in the court, but specifically Ashley Jennings in the Idaho Statesman. I forget the exact date, but if you look it up, you'll see. She discloses that there were 71 federal grand jury subpoenas that were issued, right? And that she turned over all the information regarding those subpoenas to the defense team. Now, that sounds nice on its face, but it ignores the issue of the actual copy of the subpoenas themselves and why it's relevant. The reason it's relevant and why Ann Taylor was trying to get it or to suppress the evidence is on federal subpoenas, they're going to have, and it's required in order to impanel a grand jury. That's the power. It needs a predicate federal crime, without which you don't have a federal grand jury impaneled. You need a federal crime. Just like a lawsuit in any court needs a law being broken. In order to impanel a federal grand jury, a criminal case, you need a federal crime. So we start with that premise and where it leads. We don't know which federal district court it was issued in. It could be in Washington. It could be Nevada. Don't know. It could be Idaho. Don't know. But we know they were issued. We also, on that subpoena itself, it would have the scope of discovery, what they were looking for, and the target. Was it only BK? Because 71 federal grand juries, subpoenas, 71 of them is way too much for one person. I think we could all agree. It has to be more than one person or more than one area that they were looking to get information. And it's just the volume suggests that there's more than one. And that's a fair question, I think, and a fair assumption. Because what do you need? Apple, Google? I mean, they know Apple can't give you that information because it's proprietary. It's kind of like Othram. And they hide behind these walls. Meanwhile, they're actually, these tech companies actually assist the feds, but they don't tell you that. They just tell you they can't disclose that in court, and you have to figure out another way because they have proprietary applications in which they use for that information, right? So that sounds good in theory, but there's always a backdoor, right? So those grand jury subpoenas were never given to the defense counsel. And think about the power that it would have had. If you knew that what federal crime they were looking at, it would possibly blow the water out from the state case. If they were looking at a RICO action or is it stalking? Because if it's stalking, Thompson says there's no evidence of him stalking or even being around 1122 prior to that night. So what is it? And why would they hide that? If the government was so transparent and wanting to be just, why are they hiding it? They're hiding it because most likely there's sealed indictments pending. And to your point about an operation, it's still going on. They have to protect the human sources that are embedded in these operations until they're safe, or until you have enough indictments where you're ready to arrest numerous individuals so that you can protect your human sources. Now, I do want to make a distinction between confidential human sources that are embedded and usually you never will hear about versus what I call a confidential informant who has warts, like a Molly McMichael. You don't mind someone like that taking a fall or using drugs or being identified because that's okay. She already has that history, but you're not going to expose operatives within federal assets. That's what I would call the confidential human sources, where they need to be protected because their safety's at risk. One of them could be Brian Koberger. Just
Right.
because he was arrested and charged doesn't mean he wasn't a participant in that federal operation. It could very well have saved his life and many others. And that's what people have to wrap their heads around. I don't know. I'm simply suggesting that that could be part of it. So where was I going with this? Sorry. So I hope I explained the federal grand
Yeah.
jury.
Yeah, man. It's interesting because also one thing that you hear over and over again, a lot of times in hearings and whatnot with the government, Senate hearings and congressional hearings, is they have to protect sources and methods, right?
Yes.
So oftentimes now what you were discussing brings me to a point. I was going to discuss it, and I'm sure I still will with the custody queens, is that if there's sensitive information that would be revealed if they gave more information than they have to the public, that would be grounds to basically, they could hide behind that idea. Like, we can't tell the public all these things because it would reveal sensitive information, right? Which ties in with what you're saying, right? If there's things going on in the background that are connected to national security, sensitive type of things, then that information would have to be withheld from the public because, again, like you said, it could expose operatives, people working in and around the case. And to what I tend to think is going on is that Koberger was somehow already connected to these things.
Right.
And the reason that I feel that way is because, and I've said it many times, we know what we know about this case because it's what we were told about the people involved. Everything we know about the victims, everything we know about the surviving roommates, by and large, and everything we know about Koberger is what we have been told about them.
That's right.
Now, if there were the larger scale things occurring before, during, and after that fall under the blanket of national security, there would be logically a lot of sensitive information relating to sources and methods. Now, I'm going to throw this one out.
Okay.
What if there were technologies being used in these operations that the public doesn't even know exist? Surveillance technologies, for example.
Yeah.
Remember, what we know, what the public knows is about technologies is often decades behind intelligence and military level technologies.
Yes.
And so if there were technologies being used related to surveillance, then that right there would have to, they could not reveal that stuff to the public.
Yeah, and they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Yes, I agree. They wouldn't. And it comes down to being caught. until you find the perfect plaintiff defendant who's going to challenge this and it gets to the Supreme Court. That's the only time it changes, or they're caught red-handed. But it ultimately needs the Supreme Court to set the standards and say, look, this was illegal, but they never actually dismantle it 100%. They say it either goes away or you got to follow these steps. One, it would be, let's say, a search warrant. If you identify someone or you use this technology, you have to get a search warrant. And that search warrant has to be public. Right now, if it's national security, we know you potentially could use 702. There's ways around it potentially, right? But there's at least a system in place, a protocol in place to get due process. Is it perfect? Probably not. But until they're caught, the technology is used in abusing rights of U.S. citizens. That's the problem until they're caught. Because they never, what happens anytime they're ever caught? It's just they modify their behavior and say, oh, I'm sorry. Whether it's in Congress or in
Right.
the field, it's all the same thing. They'll just tell you, we reviewed the protocols and procedures, supervision. We've now provided more education, more training. And now they're going to do it by the book. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. There's always a backdoor, right?
Right.
Mm.
And that's why these people never face consequences. They get stern words, like when Mark Zuckerberg was being chewed out in
Yeah.
a congressional hearing or Senate hearing or whatever it was. He knows he's never going to get in trouble. It's all a dog and pony show. They have to, it's like
It's
they
fugazi.
gotta have the dog and pony show for the public. Oh, look at us. We're really giving it to these big tech oligarchs. But nothing happens to them. When Facebook, when the intelligence agencies had backdoor access to censor stuff that was going on related to COVID, and when other platforms, they never faced any real consequences.
No. It was just a show to make people feel comfortable that their safety, right? Their rights are being protected, which is just BS. There's always a backdoor. The government contracts that support third-party vendors and the likes of, don't forget, Elon Musk started off because of government contracts. The same with Gates, I guess. All of them have a history of government contracts. You mean to tell me they're not compromised? Are they not agents, direct or indirectly? They're assisting, whether it's the agencies and the intelligence agencies. They do what they want because they know at the end of the day they could face something worse than just losing their job. So
Yeah. And another thing too, along those lines, is a lot of these companies, if you trace it back, and I won't go down this rabbit hole now, but like the origins of these companies, they are often tied to the intelligence agencies.
yeah,
And so they start out as contractors or projects that come
yes,
from military or intelligence. Like, for example, Palantir was a CIA contractor.
yeah. Peter Thiel.
Yeah. And Elon Musk, Starlink has a lot of contracts with the intelligence community. Amazon got a contract years ago to store data for the intelligence agencies. Well, what kind of data? It depends how you frame that
Yeah.
that statement, because guess whose data is all over Amazon? Ours.
Yep.
And so you could say, oh, he's storing data for the intelligence agencies, or he's providing data for the intelligence agencies, depending on how you look at it.
They are, yeah. Every piece of data that we look at it compartmentalized, right? They just, oh well, we just have your history, your shopping history, or this or that. But no, it's the keystrokes. It's what you're searching. Your camera's looking at you, all being recorded. Our voices are being recorded, right? Now, does it have to be that they're surveilling us live on the spot? No, but they always can go back to it. It's stored. Everything that's done over the internet is being stored. And you need more and more data centers in order to create all this history that's being accumulated of every individual,
Right.
and tying it into other relatives, right? I mean, it's kind of like doing IgG, but you're doing it at a much higher scale and much more detail. I don't want to. I'm getting into what you love to do, but I love doing this as well. Exploring these avenues, but I don't want to get far off field. So, rein me back in, if you
Yeah,
will.
no, I mean, look, this is what I'm trying to get across is that for everything that we see, there are multiple layers to it. And I want to encourage people to not dismiss ideas that may just be beyond what you've looked at or what information you've come across. There, dig. There's everything has layers and dots to connect. And for example, not this last crime con, but the one before that, the one that was in Denver. That's where I met DA from Devil's
Okay.
Advocates. And we went to the only event that I went to, because I only went to the actual conference for one day because I was on vacation, and I connected with DA to meet up and discuss the case. We went to the Othram presentation. The first thing I did after we got out of that presentation is I looked up who was invested in Othram. And one of the top two, was either first or second institutional investors, was GigaFund, which is the same investment company that invests in all of Elon Musk's projects. Right? So you have to draw the connections. And then I went a step further, and of course, you have Vanguard and BlackRock, of course, right? This is what I look at, because for everything that we see on the surface, if it's connected to power structure in any way, shape, or form, whether it be the government, whether it be universities, whether it be big tech, whether it be big pharma, whatever it is, they're connected to other things as well. It's never just what we see on the surface. And that is, in my opinion, in this day and age, what we have to do as citizens, because I think the veil has been slowly lifting. And I think more people, based on what I see, are waking up. And I think that scares the power structure, and which is, in my opinion, why they have dramatically accelerated their agendas, because they have to get certain things in place before a critical mass of people are aware of them.
Or willing to take action.
Right. And it
Right.
takes a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. Unfortunately, things have to typically get pretty bad before
Yeah.
people take action.
I agree.
So I'm going to do this while I've got you up here, Amish.
Yep.
Something I wanted to get to, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. I want to challenge people to do something. I don't know if this is going to fit on screen. We'll see if it does. All right. I want to challenge people that if you consume media, certain content, whether it be mainstream or online content that's divisive and negative, and it foments outrage, unplug for 1 month. And when you come back and you see that content again, you will look at it in a different way. I have done this, and hold on, let me see if we can let me maximize it 1 second. Yeah, this comment, let me answer this comment first. 1%ers, this is Delco Alana. 1%ers, they look out for themselves. That's it. The Rockefellers wrote a handbook, if you will, when they came over to the US and talked about everything that pretty much has been going on throughout history. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
They protect each other. I've talked about this many, many times. So with that, yeah, I 100% agree with that. Now I'm simply throwing this out there to people because I think what happens is people get sucked into this divisive rhetoric and this us versus them mentality with political stuff, with racial things, with cultural things, and so on. And what does that do? It prevents people from actually taking action in their everyday life, whether it be to change things, whether it be to, be happy with the things they have in their lives. When you're constantly bombarded with negative information that's divisive, I think it's unhealthy for one. So I think if there is content out there and it's just doing nothing but making you pissed off and feeling angry and divided from your fellow citizens or whatever on whatever topics they may be, unplug from it for a period of time. I recommend a month, and you will be shocked at when you come back and look at that same content. You will see things that you didn't see, that you were desensitized to. So anyway, that's my challenge. Unplug. And if it's not making you happy and it's not contributing in a positive way to your life, I would issue this challenge to everybody.
That's a good
You-
challenge.
And
Actually, I
you
do
see
it.
that actually worked for Shirley Redacted.
Yeah. Surely I've done it myself. So Mallory says, "Don't kiss me where I pee." That's why the Dems hated Trump so much, because this businessman has also see the dark, ugly side of Hollywood. So him also knowing the ugly side of government isn't good for them. Just saying. Well, in my opinion, a lot of I won't get into it tonight, because this is like, I could do a whole 6-part series on this, and maybe I will in the future. If you go back far enough, and I promise I'll make it quick, a lot of things that we've been told our whole lives about the government, how it was founded, central banks, all these different things, we've been fed a story about. And if you dig deeper to the very core of issues that we have taken for granted and just things that we've accepted as the truth our whole lives, you will start to see that a lot of what we have been told about the very fabric of our society is not true. And again, I'll save that stuff for another time, but I recommend people look into content that goes back further.
And I will say, Mallory, we can't say the rest of your name because JJ got in trouble for saying the rest of your name.
Yeah, somebody got mad at me.
Very mad.
They were offended that I was repeating certain usernames. And, I understand that some people are offended by certain things, certain words, certain sayings. I get it. I happen to be more of a free speech absolutist, as long as it's, within, there's obviously limitations. I'm not a proponent of hate speech or anything like that. But look, I may not like what some people say and their opinions, but I fully support their ability to say those opinions. And we need to realize the significance of the Constitution, flawed as it may be. Well, no, I'm not offended by it. You guys
We're not at all.
You've heard my truck driver mouth. Is that somebody was offended that I was repeating certain usernames. And that's fine. That's their right to be offended. But I am very look, I don't seek to offend people, but I also believe in tough love. And sometimes people need to be told certain things, whether they want to hear it or not. And same with me, same with all of us.
Oh, no, Mallory, we're saying that JJ got really bad replies, and they told us that Birdie doesn't say that whole name. That's why we pointed it out. We don't care. It's a
Yeah,
great
no,
name.
I don't care. Guys, come on. The crazier your name is, screen name, the better. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Look, I may not agree with the way people present themselves and the way they speak and all of that, but who the hell am I, man?
That's
People
right.
got to
Yeah.
do their thing. I'm not going to be the one to. And look, if people talk shit in the chat, there's very few things that piss me off. But if anybody's followed me long enough knows the one thing that'll piss me off and make me be a grouchy dick is if people are trying to censor people. So,
Well, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you don't have to like. I mean, it's a great point, right, JJ? People don't have to like you, right? They don't have to hate. I mean, that's up to them. However they feel in their hearts, and they could disagree with you, and they have that right to do that. But and like we grew up, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me, right? It's something that holds true. I mean, how many years back? But that's really what it is. You should never seek physical violence, but can you say something that you want? Sure, you could say it. Might it offend you? Sure, it could offend you. You have the right to say it, but would there be consequences for what you say? Maybe.
right.
Um, so it's all relative, but you should have the right. That's what our Constitution provides. You should have the right to free speech, and I'm with you on that, JJ. You could say whatever you want. You could hate the Amish. You could hate everything about it. It doesn't matter. Um,
I love the Amish. They build the greatest things.
yeah, no, it's
Look,
just,
man, I've lived in different states and I've hung out with people from other countries a lot, and I've learned things from them that I was completely ignorant to when I was younger because of what I've been spoon fed my whole life, and people from different cultures. And I've changed a lot as I've gotten older, and I tend to be more understanding of different cultures. And, that whole idea of cultural relativity, there's something to that, because people come from different cultures, different environments that they've come up in, and different religions and different belief systems.
yeah,
And I wish that people would get to a place where they realize that, not everybody, we are all humans and we all have the same essential ways of being in the world, but socially and our how we've been raised, our experiences are different. And like oftentimes people judge cultures that they don't understand out of context,
because it's
right?
foreign.
And I think that maybe it's because of what I've been exposed to in my life and how I grew up in a crazy life and living in different states and doing different things. I tend to be pretty accepting of people from different cultures, and I typically don't buy into a lot of the horse shit that the public is fed about this culture or that culture or this or that, because I think a lot of that stuff is fear based. And so, look, man, people don't have to agree with me or like me, but I'll take you to task if someone just drops some kind of criticism in a chat or something like that and doesn't back it up. That's what I'm a big believer in. Look, you can drop your opinion, but you better be ready to defend it, because I'll defend my opinions and my theories.
Right. But
And
you
I'm not
being
afraid.
open to a debate, even if you're trying, and that's true, but sometimes there can be people who the debate is one-sided, right? They basically could mute you, shut you down, or whatever. So that's not a real debate. Unfortunately, there's people like that. But you're talking about having a real debate, and I'm always open to that. And you're right.
Right. And look, man, I don't get upset. Look, if people challenge me, when I formulate ideas on a stream, I can only give a tiny portion of all the different information that led me to that.
Right.
Just like you're speaking about certain things, right? You didn't just wake up one day and find that information and then lock in on an idea. You've aggregated different pieces of information to get you to where you are. You've learned about different things. And so it's hard, right? We're on streams and whatnot to like fully express ideas sometimes, because conversations take turns, and the chat goes in different directions and what have you, and different questions. I think that if people are willing to be deep thinkers, then chances are they didn't just snap their fingers and come up with an idea. They've probably wrestled with it.
Sure.
It's just hard sometimes to lay out a whole stream of ideas in a whatever, an encapsulated stream or whatever,
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of my content is about different big picture topics. And I've said that there's a common thread that runs through just about every video I've done so far, and I'm just getting started. And I'm not going to spell it out for everybody. I plan to keep going and expounding on the bigger ideas more and more.
As you should. No, it's great. I think you
Hey,
had some
Gulf
great
Coast
topics.
Bum, glad you made it. Sorry to cut you off, Amish.
No, I think the content's great, and you have a very, and I think you're like me. We're having conversational exchanges of ideas, and we do that with our friends, and we find out, we learn from those kind of debates and questioning. But it's not, I've never seen it toxic. Sometimes you might want to get your point across, but in order to really learn or be a great debater or learner, just learning how to learn is something that many people don't know how to do, and it's actually a skill. So there's a time to be listening, and there's a time to be talking. And learning. I mean, there's all these things that come into play, but I love the conversational approach. It's as if you're talking to a friend, and that's how it should be, actually, because you're going to get the real thoughts out there and the real kind of debate, as opposed to someone who just may want to get a point across and that's it. And that's
Right.
fine too. And that's fine too. They just don't, it all depends on the person, but it's learning. To me, it's always about learning. And I remember a mentor of mine, and that's, no matter how old you get, you're always learning. And if you think you've learned it all, then you might as well pack it up.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you've opened my eyes to things that I haven't specifically considered or focused on. That's what I like. There's certain people that I've come into contact with since I've started doing this and been on a couple of different channels and whatnot, that the people in the chat, the people that are guests on other shows, the people that I've had the chance to have conversations with, like, I
Yes.
take it in, I try to, like, I have my ideas, but other people's ideas expand. I mean, not to sound corny or cliche, but they expand your mind. You have to stretch your brain whenever you take in information that is new to you.
Right. Yeah, no, and you don't stop there. Everyone, it doesn't matter what level of education or what you think. That's how I was brought up as well. But everyone has a value. They all have a story to tell, and there's something to learn from everyone, from the lowest level that one might think they're at the lowest level. But we're all equal. And that individual that may be looked down upon has some of the most powerful information that you might never hear unless you ask them, and what they mean by that. And I found that out personally. And I know looking under pebbles is where you find some of the most amazing, not only amazing people, but amazing information that just jolts you. So that's how I operate. I look under every pebble.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and when we speak next week, we'll talk beforehand.
Yep.
And we'll have specific chunks of things that we'll discuss, and I'll let you expand more on ideas. It'll be more focused. Tonight, I warned people in the beginning, this stream could go all over the place, right? And because I do that sometimes. But I want to dig a little bit more into some of the things that you're speaking of and pick your brain a little bit more, because it's been a while since I dug into things like specific, the minutia type things in the
Right.
case. I do still follow everything, but I'm also doing a lot of background stuff for the channel, reading books. I'm way behind on reading, and I'm reading like 3 different books right now, and I'm behind because I want my channel to be informed by a bunch of different information. And it's a lot, between my everyday life and trying to do research. And we have big things planned for the future of the channel that it's going to require a lot of legwork and things like that. We have a research team now. We got Karen Bell, we've got Afterparty, we've got a few other people that are helping behind the scenes now. I want to build things up. I truly want to build a community, and I want to create a channel that can dig into a bunch of different topics. But in my opinion, they're connected. I think everything that I speak about is connected in some way. And that's the idea. Now, I'm glad that I've gotten to speak with you. I'm going to try to consume more of your content and get more familiar with some of your ideas, things that you discuss. And then hopefully we can do something, going forward where we check in semi-regularly and have discussions about specific things. Because look, as of now, I don't think people are just dropping the Idaho 4 case anytime soon, especially if the potential for a new trial is on the table. And so, I want to facilitate discussions, bigger picture discussions. I'm not the guy who's going to dig into the minutia of the case. You have other creators that are way better at that than I could ever be.
Same here.
Yeah.
I'll dig into it up to a point. It gets way, way granular. Certain things I don't mind. It depends what it is. But clearly, yeah, a lot of the content creators could go and tell you who said what at what time. And okay, that I don't have either. But concept wise and where certain testimony that I'm aware of and know motions and stuff, absolutely. Even the similarities with the Charlie Kirk case, for example. I mean, we could even go into that next time or however, but there's
Yes,
similarities.
please.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could go deep on that one, man.
That's near and dear to my heart.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well, JJ, we were talking about joint task force officers. It's very prevalent. That preliminary hearing, if you want to see and pick up on who were joint task force officers,
Mhm.
you could see that in the preliminary hearing that was held.
You're talking about the Tyler Robinson case?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Bagley. I just
Oh.
a lot of information, a lot of nuggets that you'll say, wait a second, he's university, police, but he was also FBI. I won't.
Mhm.
So
Right.
my
Let's
point
do
is,
that.
Amish.
Let's do it.
Amish, that could be like a 10-hour stream.
there's a lot.
Let's-
Just taking one person at a time and breaking the video down. I mean,
Let's do it next week, dude. Let's
Okay.
open that can of worms
But
because
that is one thing. If that is a great case to look at
yeah,
to parallel
yeah,
to the Idaho 4, right?
yeah, and you have much livelier FBI involvement or
Right.
non-involvement, however you want to look at it. With
Exactly, love. Yes.
well, I'm
That-
glad Philly it hits you that way. So I
It
guess we're
does.
gonna do that, JJ.
yeah, man, let's do it. I was following that case really closely for a while, and I have
I lost you. Hello.
Oh my God, where'd it go? He is off. Wait, he'll come back.
Okay.
But yes, we can go to the. Where'd you go, JJ?
I don't know what happened. The stream kicked
He's
me
back.
out. Kicked me
You're
out of my own stream.
you're like the disappearing individuals in some of that video footage in the
Jesus.
King Road.
The bear got him. The bear.
But on a side note, whatever you're up to, and I'm fine actually. I love chaos actually. So chaotic stuff, I thrive in it. So
Mhm.
if you ever want to, I mean, just go all over the place. I'm fine with that as well because there's a sense of creativity that comes along with it, and as long as you get along with your the person, consider you a friend, feel that gives
Yes.
a certain texture to the conversation, a deepness, an intimacy. Eventually, that once you share these thoughts, as unfamiliar we are with each other, we become much more familiar with each other, and it develops and allows us to share our thoughts more freely. In the back of our mind, saying instead of saying, "Oh well, maybe I shouldn't say this," right? It just goes part of the conversation. Um, so anyway, I just wanted to thank you for that because that's the whole goal and what I enjoy about discussing things. And I sense you have the same thing. So don't think that chaos. I love chaos actually because
Yeah, well,
that's
look,
my strength of looking through.
chaos is sometimes good because it presents an environment where sometimes people are not as afraid to
Yeah.
touch on, you stir things up a little bit. Sometimes people are more willing to throw ideas on the table, which I do as often as I can. If something stimulates an idea within my brain in a discussion with somebody, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for jumping on it. And if we next week, if we can discuss it beforehand, but we can dig into the Tyler Robinson case, the
Okay.
whole Charlie Kirk situation. We could touch on the Idaho 4, but maybe as a nice sort of transition, we could talk about that. So it's something new that this community may or may not be that invested in, and point out some of the similarities, which I've discussed many times
Okay.
with that case.
Well,
There
I
might be
think
great
again,
crossover.
what Big Amish says, it's an intimate group, right? And what I try to promote in the chat is every idea, every comment is welcomed. You're not going to be admonished. You're not going to be pointing
Yeah.
out like, you know what I mean? It's
Well said.
good. Like it could
I love
be
that. I love that.
right because as you know, what you and I experienced
Yeah.
previously, it could be totally off the wall, something that sounds crazy, but that can open up a whole discussion where you think tank it. And at the end of the day, we can come up with like it doesn't make sense, but I don't want people in this chat. And JJ, I know you share this same thing. I want people in chat to be confident and just say what you feel. Ask a question. Don't think it's stupid or off the wall. Like,
Yes.
this is
Never
what
is.
this channel's for. Like, your craziest comment or question could be the key. to, what we're looking for. And I think that's what sets this channel apart.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And it could also be something that we're thinking that we haven't said. So it's
Right.
never a stupid question because we're probably thinking the same thing at
Right.
some point.
And
And
we
it's-
were we were
Well,
beat down and like,
go ahead, Philly.
you know how like Amish and I, like, we have experience in other chats early on in Idaho 4 where we would ask these questions and we were treated very badly. And I don't want anybody to experience that. Ask your questions. It can be totally crazy.
And
Also, guys, another thing to consider too is a lot of times people are really heavily invested in ideas, and nobody likes their ideas to be challenged, but it's something you have to be comfortable with. And the way you get comfortable with having your ideas challenged is by discussing, and you get desensitized. Like, for example, anybody that maybe studied debating, or you had to take a public speaking course or a debating type of scenario, and in a public speaking course where they say, you argue this side, you argue that side, you may not even agree with that side of the argument that you're presented, but you have to defend it. And by doing that, you have to understand the other side's perspective. And I think so if people have things to say and somebody pushes back, don't be afraid to debate it. I encourage people to get better at debating your point.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
JJ and I push back all the time. You're good to go.
Well, that's how you learn. Right? That's the only way you learn. It's the only way to learn, especially because you're gaining information. Now, you might have other information, but it's all about learning and respecting each other, because that's how you truly learn. Just from communicating. And everyone is part of that learning process. Not one person should be left out, because we all have something to learn. Like I said before, you look under every pebble. So if you think you're a pebble, you're the kind of person I want to talk to.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, good stuff. I appreciate the openness for more discussion, Amish, and I hope that we will have more.
Absolutely.
I'm very thankful that we are acquainted now, and I'm going to promote you, and I sincerely appreciate you being a part of this, man. And I'm looking forward to us having more time next weekend, which will be another late night thing. And by the way, guys, look, I don't know how late it is where everybody is right now, but we can still open up to some other discussions. I'm cool with going longer if people want to. So, but if anybody has a thread they want to pull or a different topic they want to introduce, it's always welcome. Because, it's good to talk about different stuff, right? It's good to cleanse the palate and open things up for other discussions. So if anybody's got any ideas.
I think Amish is better on. I think Amish is better on this channel. Woo.
Thank
Amish.
you.
Thank you, I guess, but
I'm an instigator.
Gulf Coast boat. Did he see me on Birdies? Is that why he's saying that, or
I don't know. Let's see. Amish,
Well,
I need a shed built in my backyard. Can you bring your people over?
Yeah, you got it. We'll raise some barns. How about that?
Oh, Amish, you went off on someone the other night.
Oh,
what?
Okay. I didn't. Okay.
You went off on somebody?
Just to be fair, Philly, I think what we've gone through.
Yeah.
That same individual, one of those same individuals,
oh Lord,
I was just in a chat, just providing it was on it was with Sergeant Friday, and I was just in a chat, just saying, giving my thoughts about it was regarding you have to seek a recusal of Judge Hippler before you try and amend a pleading, because you would waive the ability to disqualify or recuse the judge, Hippler, if you file an amended pleading. We're talking about Gregory Roche. And I would just say other things. And it wasn't attacking anyone. It was just saying, this is, I think this is right, or, whatever. And it wasn't directing. And it's a, I'm not going to use a derogatory statement, but and I wasn't talking. It was just in the chat. They were asking me questions, and this person then was calling me out and saying, "I'll debate you anywhere, Big Amish, and come on out here and get on." And I said, "Okay." I try to get. I got on finally, and I think you know who I'm talking about. It'll make a voice that basically would destroy roses just on the first syllable.
Yes, I know exactly.
And knows nothing about legal strategy.
Right.
So I basically said this. The one part which she didn't even know about, and she holds herself out to be this person who knows everything, was the 71 grand jury subpoenas. If you remember, I brought that up, and she was like, "Oh, there's no evidence. This is back 8 months ago." So I said, "Do you remember that now? Do you want to take that back? Like, how, that there's a federal grand jury that that was involved?" And then I addressed it, and then she started, it was off the rails again. And I said, "I'm not going to hear nonsense. This is what I got to tell you." I said, you are basically, she was advocating that Gregory Roche is going to amend the petition, the PCR, okay, without doing anything. And I said, "You're advocating this, and you're missing the whole elephant in the room, and that is the recusal of Judge Hippler. Because if you don't file a recusal first, it's going to be waived. It's going to be waived for federal habeas, and that will solve the case in itself if you remove Hippler." And I said, either you're ignorant or you just don't understand, the law, one or the other. So, and then Sergeant Friday basically cut me off. So I don't think it was personal, but it became personal because it's just how. And again, I'm fine to debate, but if you're not being allowed to debate, and it's like getting just clips of somebody, they'll shut you down, they don't let you speak, and it's foolish. So I'm just not going to be dealing with this anymore. I cherished the opportunity and I loved it, but you're not going to get a fair shake at addressing incompetence, and that's what I saw. So I'll call it out. If you're calling me out, I'm going to call you out. So I don't know what debate, because it seemed like a one-sided debate after all. But anyway, that's what it was. So I don't know who brought it up. So just to put that aside. So that's how it dealt with. And that's it. Never spoke. I didn't say anything. I went back on Sarge's chat. Didn't say anything negative about anybody. Didn't say anything about being cut off. I just left it at that. And I went on like nothing happened. And I don't mean her any I think she's fine for what she does. And that's
Exactly.
just leave me alone. But if you're going to call me out, just have your ammunition ready.
I think she's fine for what she does, but I think it's that people buy too much into what she says and does.
Yeah. And that's
all I'm
fine.
gonna say.
She has her little fiefdom. That's fine. Good for her. just don't.
Come on, guys. Give a hint who you're talking about.
No, we cannot. We're going to be nice.
Yeah.
Okay. The chat wants
Amish
to know.
and I have been through the paces. We've been to war.
Yeah, it's just you can't rationalize the irrational. That's what I'll say.
Right. I've had people in the past when I was on Devil's Advocates jump all over me in the chat because of what I believe. And one of them was like a state investigator or something. And I trying to shut down a discussion. And I went off on them. I'm like, look, are you trying to say like there's no government corruption? It's never happened. Like, and I went off on them, and they went crying to DA about it. It's like, if you're going to try to censor me or censor a discussion, that's it. That I have no tolerance for
Yes.
whatsoever.
And
It's
that's
like just saying, "Oh, trust the experts." That shit doesn't fly with me.
yes. Trust- yeah. I'm here from the government. I'm right. I'm here I'm here to help.
Yes.
So,
We're here to help.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, I was on the stream, the first Christopher Whitcomb interview. I was on the stream when he did his first. I read an advanced copy of the book, all that. And, I believe that I wasn't going to sit on somebody else's channel and start pressing somebody and, being like really aggressive with questions and things, because it wasn't my place to do so. But I think discussion, in my opinion, I'm not afraid to challenge somebody. If somebody's puts themselves in a position of being an expert, I don't automatically defer to them about everything. If you're going to talk about a specific part of something that you are an expert about, of course, I'll listen, because you have knowledge I don't have. But once they try to generalize that whole trust me, bro, trust the experts,
right.
that doesn't fly. Nobody is beyond questioning. No expert.
100%.
It doesn't matter. We've fallen into this really dangerous thing in society, the whole trust the experts thing, because a lot of experts are either biased or corrupt. It's a reality. I mean, anybody who's conducted research knows that research can be biased. Research can be financially influenced. Nothing should be beyond questioning. That's the point that I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, well said. What we've seen it with NIH, we've seen it right in pharmaceuticals, we've seen it with our own doctors. I mean, how many times have I gone against doctors' advice? And only because I spent the time to look into specific health issues, right? And then challenge them on it. And actually, well, I'm just saying, yes, you could rely on it. If it's something you don't know about it, clearly you got to get your information first. But there's some things that don't add up sometimes, or you want to take a different course of action, and they try to berate you, saying, "You know what you're doing. I'm the doctor," or you might be exposing your family to whatever. It could be regarding the COVID-9 shot.
Yeah,
Whatever it
well,
was. But
I picked up on that.
yeah. So whatever it would be. But, the point is, your point is well taken. It's about gathering information, and then you should be the director of that information and make that decision. Right. And it's kind of like with BK, right? He's the client. He needs the information to make decisions on whether to accept a plea or not. And you need information of, evidence. If it's been withheld, was it exculpatory? And what about the underlying data that you need? Would it be exculpatory or not? And how do you review 68 terabytes of unindexed metadata? So it's just plain pictures. You have no way of knowing what the hell it is until you actually go through it and then index it and put metadata in it. And usually that needs a whole staff full of people working constantly on it. And that would take a long time just to get through it. But you ask yourself, again, I don't want to go sidetrack back to that, but it's all about information. Now, some people are fine with relying on their expert. That is fine as well. But I've come to a point where if I could smell problems, and I know myself. So whether it's for me personally or just issues in general, I will research. Right. And I could agree then with the expert. Doesn't mean I disagree with them. I mean, they clearly have much more education, but it doesn't mean that they have the same interest as I do. when they give you their advice. Because
But I'm
now,
going to challenge you, Amish, on the research.
what's that? Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna challenge you when
Oh,
you
okay.
bring up the COVID. Well, we'll
Okay.
just say that the big
Yes.
shot. I'm going to challenge you on that. So all the research that was published, they're all bought, right?
Yes.
It's all bought.
It's tainted.
It's all
Yes.
bought. It's
biased.
tainted
Yeah.
and all paid for.
Yes.
So when people research it, they're researching these great articles from like the Journal of Medicine, blah, 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 but that's all bought.
It is bought, but once you break
Yeah,
down, if you look at the
right.
publications and you break down their
There you
information
go.
and how they interpret things, it's all. Here's a great line, and this is from a general that JJ's going to tell you whose name it is. There's three things, right? There's statistics, there's damn statistics, and there's lies, right? So my point is that statistics could be abused, and they always are, to
Mhm.
follow a certain narrative, right? Whether you want to show it being effective or not effective, or changing the data, for example, on what a reaction is. And I'll just use it in a context of homicides, like in DC, where they changed the definition and they showed a 30% drop in homicides because they now define homicide
Yes.
by using only a knife or a
Right.
firearm. So everything else goes out the window. So it's, it's redefining things. It's just a mess. Just common sense is thrown out the window in order to advance narratives and for funding, whatever you want. So,
Well, that's Amish. One of the things that you're touching on here, and Philly was touching on, is a lot of these institutions and these quote unquote, experts and researchers, they get grants for research from higher up, right? From like NIH and these different organizations. A lot of times, like in the journals and things like that, where these supposedly peer-reviewed studies are published, well, the same people who would benefit from a certain outcome from these peer-reviewed studies are the ones funding the research and funding the journals that publish the research. And so with regards to research, these researchers, they want to continue to get their grants.
yeah, their money
Right.
trail. That's what they
Right.
live on.
You have to feed the machine.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people, again, it all boils down to humans. Humans are fallible. Humans can be compromised. Research can be biased. When I was in college, this is relevant, so
Okay.
real quick. When I was in college, one of the things I had to do for a professor, like a side project, was research into SSRI clinical trials when they were being conducted before some of the big brand name SSRI drugs were being released. So before they got FDA approval. And one of the things that most people, I certainly didn't know about it at the time, is that a certain company that we all know of, giant pharmaceutical company, they buried the clinical trial data relating to suicidal ideation in young people in the clinical trials with some of these SSRI drugs.
Right.
So what they did was they released their summary of the information from the clinical trials. That's what they released to the peer-reviewed journals. The same thing happened. Anybody who wants to debate me on this can. With the COVID-19 stuff, the mRNA stuff, they released summaries to the peer-reviewed journals. That's not science. You have to release all of the data for it to be accurately reviewed.
But to your point, who is complicit then? Just follow along with the thought process you're going through. So they provide them summaries, just like the FBI provided the state prosecution summaries to the defense. Very
There you
similar.
go.
Right? But to your point, it's supposed to be peered review. You're the peer reviewer and your group's reviewing it, and you lack that information. What do? What are you supposed to do? Supposed to reject it and call it out. You're not providing it. It's unreliable. These are risks here. You wave the red flag saying there's problems here. Why are you concealing it? It's supposed to be a checks and balance, but we know it's just checks. They get their checks and they're fine with it. So
Right.
This has to change, and I'm glad you're bringing it up.
And you know what? Listen, I was a pretty serious student in college, and science is not beyond question. That's not what science is,
Well,
right? The scientific method, what has happened is financial interests have bastardized what science is. And so if you look and pay attention, and if you read and you understand how research is supposed to be conducted, and I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I did have to review a lot of research from my studies, and I did have to learn the basic premises of doing really research and reviewing research. And there are things that your average person may not know about how they come to these, consensus parts of research on anything that is high profile, right? A lot of people are only getting a chunk of it, and they're getting it in a biased way. And I had battles with people over this stuff. It's like, don't tell me about peer-reviewed studies when you don't even know how peer-reviewed studies are conducted. And the problem is the trust me, bro, trust the experts thing. That doesn't fly. Real science is questioning everything. Nothing is settled science. Science evolves over time. How many theories have been disproven?
Yes, nothing
that were
sacred.
accepted?
Yep.
So,
yes.
So anyway,
JJ, you and I
digress.
talked about this earlier. So I'm reading a book about Sigmund Freud back in the 1800s, but I do want to go to Delco about your mother-in-law with the kidney transplant.
Oh.
So here's my thing.
Yeah.
My ex-mother-in-law at the time, COVID hit really bad, and she was diagnosed with grade 4 lung cancer in California. Now, she had lung cancer before. And so we went out there, and I found her a holistic doctor, and he did not make her get the COVID shots or whatever. Let's just say, like, her first doctor that she went to before we went out there was like, yeah, you got 3 months. And we're in 2026. This was she's alive. She's doing well.
God bless her. Yeah.
God bless her.
Yeah. Oh,
but what's so sad is, and we're going to do a series on this, is just like all these things that you've researched online and these peer-reviewed studies, they're all bought and paid for.
Yeah. A lot.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, we're going to do this chemo and we're going to give her this drug. And I was like, absolutely not.
Good for you. That's exactly right. Because I'm just thinking, I mean, going through health issues and seeing how things get manipulated, it's just it's a horrible thing to actually accept. And that's why
Yeah.
But we all remember the Jerry Lewis cerebral palsy
Yes.
event, right? Now think about it. I'm going now back, just going back to the 70s. And they were always telling us, right, how, just a few more years, this will be solved. and how many millions was raised. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what they were doing. I don't know, but all I know is when I was I remember calling and sending money, but that's when you're looking at a kid and seeing other kids in that position, you just felt horrible. Anyway, I remember doing that, but to this day, that's never been solved.
Right.
And and that's just money being taken from the public directly, right? Don't even know what that foundation was really all about. Not that I've even looked into it, but when we're talking about the Cove shot and how many billions of dollars, let alone the lives, and that's coming from taxpayers, that's us as well. So
Yeah.
we're being robbed in so many different ways through misrepresentations of medical technology, medical solutions, and it's all the same. It's just the repetitive marketing tool that they prey upon us because they know most people are good natured. Whatever, if they have something, they'll help somebody. You'll do it. It's just the American.
It's the American way. Like I tell JJ, like for the first part of my nursing career, I was a labor and delivery nurse. That's what I was.
Right.
Brought life. That's what I was. I loved it. And then the second part of my career for 11 years now, I'm in a private practice and I deal with insurances.
Oof.
And the back end of how do I make my practice lucrative, right? How do I get my providers to get as much money that they can get from seeing patients? And then I really saw the devil of the insurance companies.
Yes. Yeah.
It's sick. Like they really like, and JJ will like tell you, like I have to go into these board meetings because I literally have to tell my providers, my doctors, like you have to code this and you have to code that. And they're like, why? And I'm like, that's what's gonna get you the best return and that's what's gonna get us the money and that's what's gonna get us the incentive at the end of the day. It's sick. It's really sick. And we're totally off of the Idaho 4, but
No, but it's all part of it. It really is because the public is being duped. That's
right.
what it's, and it's so many ways. And if you're
So
a patient, you're just like
Yep.
BK. You're at the disposal of the experts or
Yes.
the managerial class. You have insurance companies now and Wall Street basically practicing medicine. That's
Yes.
what you have.
Well,
So
I
then to
just
put me
wanted
in a
to.
higher level, they put me in school for getting a degree in coding and billing. And so then you really get into DC. Like I have meetings with DC and like, this is why you have to code that. So there's literally people in DC, it's CMS, that tells us what we have to code and why to get the most. Yeah,
Wow.
it's sick. But JJ, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No. I want to encourage people to do something if you haven't already. For many, many years, we've all heard it for decades. Oh, the corporations. And I agree with that. The corporations really are the ones that run our country, but you have to go one step beyond. It's the banking industry. It's the international banks, central banking that controls everything. They control every corporation. In my opinion, they control all governments. They establish the way an economy is going to work. They implement policies, economic policies, so on and so forth. If you guys want to go one step beyond, pick a company, one of these giant corporations. Go to institutional investing. Look at what large investment banks have majority or controlling shares or large portions of shares. Those organizations, they have voting power. They choose the board. They have policy influence. So it's really them that are shaping policy. And so if you have to, in my opinion, you have to go steps beyond what's right in front of your face, because the news will tell you this and this corporation and that corporation and this and that. You have to go further. Who's really controlling those organizations? When you have banks like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, etc., that basically have huge amounts of shares in every major industry on planet Earth, go even one step further. This is what you have to do if you really want to understand. Look at those banks. Look at BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Berkshire Hathaway. What you name the big investment bank, they own each other. Look at who has it's an infinite regress. Look at the banks that have the shares in those banks. They all own each other. And I made a video about this. I don't believe we have a free market economy.
It's an illusion of one.
It's an illusion.
JJ has a great take on this.
It's an illusion of this free market economy. Why do prices always go up at the same time? All right, so let me just go off on a tangent for a minute here. Let's pretend this like there's a graph, and you have different segments of the economy, right? So you have, let's just say, energy, food, fuel, gas. You have you name it. Name the major components of our economy, right? So, and let's picture them all on a graph. Whoever's in office or whatever, they say, oh, I'm lowering the price of gas. It's going to be the lowest you've seen. It's going to be $2 a gallon, whatever the narrative is.
Yep.
Let's say they do that for a little bit. All of a sudden people are going, oh, look, they did what they said. Especially if you voted for that person, look at the price of this or that. It's better. But guess what, guys? Look at the prices further down the line that may not be as high profile. Those go up. Well, guess what? If you look at the premise that I'm presenting, if those industries are all controlled by the same small group of banks, then nothing has changed. They're still getting that money. The public is still paying more on balance. But what they do is they highlight the ones where prices have gone down, but they're not looking at housing costs, whatever it is. Just pick the part of the economy. It's a shell game. It's a scam. And it's all run by the banks. The banks control everything. They're the ones who set policies. They're the ones who have their meetings in Davos and Bilderberg and the Atlantic Council and you name it, these big consensus building groups where the elites meet. They're planning this stuff out. So we don't really have a free market economy, and it trickles down. And I've said for a long time, in my opinion, corruption trickles down. If people and organizations, large institutions see the corruption, it's very obvious, it's not hidden, well, then they're going to push the limits because they're going to know it's like wink, wink, nod, nod. I can get away with this because we're all on the take. And it trickles down. And that's why I believe all these things tend to happen simultaneously, because it's the same small group of people ultimately that are controlling the prices and policies and et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, that's my rant. I won't go any further, but
No, you're fine. I think we all share the same rant. But no, you're right.
Mallory, I will reply to you. You will get a raise, but the raise does not equal the cost of living. So I've been with my practice for 11 years and seeing the cost of living, though I've gotten raises in between and bonuses, it still doesn't equal out.
Think of the cost of a home.
Right.
That's how you got to look at it.
There you go.
Gas, just the cost of a home now.
And that goes into the American dream that we're doing. Exactly right, Amish. Look at the cost of home.
Go back to the 70s. Look at the two things. look at the cost of living and look at the income on a graph. So you have one line is the cost of living, one is
Yep.
the rate of increase of income. So it's both
Yep.
are tracking the rate of increase. The cost of living is a much steeper line on the graph. And the cost of living since the 70s has not risen, or rather the median income has not increased in conjunction with the cost of living. And so if you look at these things, yes, they have to give pay raises because they'll lose people if people aren't making even remotely enough to live. But what has changed is the ability to get ahead. And so
Thank you. Yes.
to be able to actually save money, the cost of houses, the median income and the median cost of housing is not even in conjunction. So we've all heard about the hollowing out of the middle class. Well, it's a very real metric to look at.
You guys are going to see that in the American Dream, what JJ's saying. There is a huge gap. Exactly what he's saying.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I'm just trying to illustrate that we have, all right, the old saying, we've all heard the adage, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. During COVID-19, we saw the largest wealth transfer in modern history from the middle class to the very, very small percentage of these financial elites. Now, COVID facilitated that, whether people want to accept that or not. And so you have to also look at, and I do individual videos about this stuff. You have to look at these large globalist organizations and these globalist agendas that have been presented to the public for a long time. Now, under these types of agendas, which, sad to say, all governments are following these agendas. They're not going to tell the public this. They're going to give you some nonsense rhetoric. Doesn't matter who's in office. They all follow these agendas because that's how they get into office. It's the donor class that shapes the policies. So if you look at these agendas, what is globalism? Let's just look at what globalism is. The whole basic premise that started with globalism was outsourcing jobs so that these corporations could get cheaper labor because they could use third world countries to put these factories, or countries with less manufacturing protocol, less strict manufacturing protocols and laws, so they could produce more for less money. But we have not gotten better quality or cheaper products. The prices have continued to go up while the profit margins have dramatically increased. Look at these recessions. These organizations, these large banks, they made record profits while people were suffering. So it's just a very simple idea. The wealthy elites didn't become wealthy elites because they care about humanity. They did it because they were probably born into it on some level, and they have no connection to regular people. And they believe that it's their entitlement to rule the world. Just read books about these secret societies and these elite little groups like the World Economic Forum. These people, there's a real thing in the world, sociopaths and psychopaths, and there's more of them than people realize. And wouldn't you be a perfect shoe-in for a CEO or a high-level politician if you were a sociopath? It could make cutthroat decisions without any concern for how it impacts regular people. So the system itself is based on this type of thinking. And I would recommend everybody read the book, The Corporation. It likens corporations to psychopaths, the way they do business and the whole cost benefit analysis and that. I won't rant anymore about it, but look at the big picture, guys. That's why I won't shut up about that, because the answers can be found not in what the mainstream media tells you. They're trying to shape your behaviors. They're trying to shape opinions. That is not where the answers lie. You have to go beyond that yourself.
And I will say this, I had this whole conversation the other day in my office. Like all the things that people are doing, it didn't work. JJ, you know this. Now they're pushing socialism, right? That's why I feel like they're purposely making it the cost of living, making it so hard that it's like people are welcoming socialism.
Well, yeah,
It's a point. It's a plan, right?
AJ,
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Amish, real quick.
Yeah.
I did a video on Animal Farm, the George Orwell book. The main premise in that book is how movements like communism and socialism get co-opted and bastardized, and they become totalitarian systems. Now, this is where we have a major cultural divide in this country, is they present these two diametrically opposed ideas, capitalism and socialism, or democratic socialism, or communism, but these diametrically opposed ideas. And they present it as if those are the only two choices. And that is where the psyop comes in. Anyway, I sorry, Amish, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, this goes into a huge area. But no, you're right. And you could go down and break apart, right? Karl Marx, or Marxism, and actually what started all that. And I'm sure you might have done shows on it, but I know I find this all very interesting and fascinating. I don't want to just cut off on it, but the missus is going to accuse me of having a mistress if I don't get back to. She sent me a text. I'm in my lower level of my home right now, but she sent me a text, so I'm going to have to run. But I really appreciate everything. I love this discussion, but and this is a big issue to me, is the brainwashing of the youth and giving freebies that we've seen in different elections as a carrot, but and shaping votes, right? So to me, whether you provide a phone or provide anything, if you say you're going to allow citizenship for this group, as much as I feel for that group, if you're buying votes, if that is the intent, right, and we could deduce that it is in many times, or shaping the vote, it dilutes other votes. So you have a dilution of the voting system by basically allowing the trafficking of humans over for political gain.
Right.
So, and it feeds then into the issue that you're bringing up, whether it's socialism, communism. Once we see that trend happening, we're already in trouble. I don't know how you reverse that field, because many people, you can't, right? Many people, I, working, I remember working at a very, very young age, and I mean, it was just understood you do this, and, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. But the point is, a lot of people work hard, and a lot work harder than me. I'm not saying that. But my point is, if you feel that you're getting government benefits and you're comfortable with that, we have a huge problem, especially the people who are abusing it. I'm not saying there's people who need it, and God bless them. Hopefully there's benefits that could help them. And we have a lot of veterans who've suffered because of not having benefits. So I just find this very alarming. I find the dilution of vote. We have an illusion. You talked about an illusion of regarding the economy, but we also have an illusion of a vote, of a free choice to vote, because we don't have it. We really don't have it. So you're bringing up some great points and larger issues that we could go on for
Yeah, and we will. We'll talk more about the stuff, and I'm going to address some of the questions in the chat. Amish, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Love you.
Well-
Love you both.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I'll reach out to you and we'll put something together for next Saturday, and we'll do some digging and some comparing the two cases. And thank you so much for being on stage so long. I appreciate it, man.
No, thank you for having me. Had a great time.
Right
Bye,
on, brother.
chat. Love you all in the chat as well. All right.
We'll
Good
talk
night.
soon, man.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. I wanted to real quick so people know that I am seeing the comments in the chat. Thanks to Amish, Big Amish Media. Follow his channel. He's going to be on next Saturday night again, and we're going to get into a lot more. I wanted to just clarify something. I do believe that we need a combination of capitalism and some socialist policies. My point is, now do your research about George Orwell, how he came to his conclusions. There's a backstory to it. Animal Farm, 1984, his two most famous books. His main point is how these movements that may have started out to benefit citizens and humanity at large get co-opted, and they have always had a tendency to morph into totalitarianism. Think about this. You have to think about this. On paper, in theory, it sounds great. We should all have free education, free healthcare. If you have a job, you shouldn't have to pay for healthcare, and education should be free. If you want a really thriving society, you want more educated people. You want healthier people. However, what happens is power structures take advantage of people. Once they get people in a position where they're dependent on them, the system, then what happens is all large systems gravitate towards more and more control and more power. That's history. That's not my theory. Without exception, that has been what has played out throughout history, because the machine, the power structure, wants to get as much control over their population as possible. And if they can tell you how much money you can have, where you can go to school, then what happens is that those ideas end up getting co-opted, and they end up getting more and more control over people. There's been plenty of experiments conducted on using the ideals of socialism. And what happens is people start to they incorporate this idea of learned helplessness because they're relying on somebody else. And don't take my word for it. Research it yourself. There is a reason why historically all societies that have followed that socialism or communism model have ended up in largely as totalitarian systems. There's a few exceptions, but look at what those countries produce. Look at the art. Look at what they contribute to the world. And you'll start to see why certain things become more obvious when you look at history. So that's all I'm saying. I think the power structure doesn't want us to have a good balance of capitalism and socialist policies. They want total control. And those systems are what can't be trusted, the bigger systems. Anyway, sorry for the diatribe. I just, yeah, Mallory, some people have maybe grown up in countries that have socialist type systems or assimilate types of socialist systems. But if you have to look at it at scale, at like the big picture. And that's all I'm saying is look at throughout history. and see. Now I'm saying that I think we should have a combination of those things. But what I'm saying also is that the power structure doesn't want that. Anyway, I just my beliefs have evolved a lot over time. And so no, look, Mallory, I get it. I don't come I come from a essentially I'm one of 8 kids. There were times my family was on food stamps growing up. If my father was in between jobs or something along those lines. So my family didn't have money. So I'm saying we need those social safety nets. What I'm saying is that the system as it stands right now is not functioning. It's a sick system. It's not functioning properly. No, I get you, Mallory. I hear what you're saying. I'm passionate about these things. So I understand because I'm a working class dude. I have a working stiff just like everybody else. And I'm definitely somebody I've seen both sides of it in my everyday life. Yeah, I agree. I think we're on the same page, Mallory. Angel Heart, good night. Thanks for coming. And I just wanted to thank everybody who was in earlier. It's about time to wrap it up. I think we've gone 4 hours. And so Brandon Rudder, my stepfather, had 12 brothers and sisters. Yeah, Irish Italian here too, man. And grew up in a working class neighborhood in Brooklyn and then moved to Jersey. And Philly, I'd say we wrap it up. And, we had some good discussions tonight. Thanks again to Big Amish Media for coming up. And he'll be back next Saturday for another late night after party. And I lived all over Jersey. I started out in central Jersey, and then my adult life, I lived sort of like outside New York City because I worked right outside of New York City. So like the central Jersey Shore and then North Jersey. Oh, nice. You're in Jersey too. Cool. I'm in Colorado now, but I've been here for a while, but I'm a Jersey boy.
Oh, Angel Heart, where in Jersey?
Gulf Coast Bum. Yeah,
JJ,
man.
where's Union County? I have no
Okay,
idea.
yeah, I know Union County. I lived all over North Jersey, so I know it. I know Union County. Thanks, Brandon. And Gulf Coast Bum, thanks for popping in. Thanks for coming. I appreciate everybody. Kara, thank you. Oh, yeah, Middlesex County. I went to Middlesex County College for a little while. I know New Jersey. I've lived in all over different parts of Jersey. And Mallory, thanks for coming. Oh, you're living in Idaho. Yeah, I moved around a little bit. Lived in different states when I was young. I liked getting out. So, and Kara, thank you. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you guys soon. I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate the discussions. And so, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks, Philly. I'll see everybody soon. We'll announce what's coming up. So, all right. Good night, everybody.